A couple of my concerns for our community is that we are excluded from the county's fire severity map, and it's my understanding that we're part of the county's park fire plan, and I believe that because we're excluded from the fire severity map, that we're also being excluded from funding. And you know, vegetation management is a big issue. I would like to see a plan in this community for people on fixed incomes to be able to help them clean their yards. And I would also like to see maybe a effort to put in some walking paths, like at the end of Trinity, where people only have really one way to get out, maybe something that goes down to the school, and maybe revisit the idea, because like Lori said about people having to come over his backyard to get down on the next street. So, you know, maybe we can get some grant funding that can make this community safer by adding walking paths.
Well, let me talk to the path one first. That's a very good point, Paul. In fact, it was a comment we discussed just this past Monday when we were doing the 20-year CIP review of the city. There were a couple of paths and a couple of alleyways that certainly need to be extended. The way we're trying to approach that is through the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee and through the funding available from CCAG and from state and federal resources. So there are a couple of paths that we know right now that we need to extend and improve. So we're certainly working on that, and I'll let the chief speak on that issue.
Just want to clear 2 points. One, we work very hard not to be in the very high fire severity rate. Let me tell you why. You lose your insurance right now. Insurance companies are not insuring people in those areas. We did it not because we did it to pretend like we don't have a problem here. We were able to demonstrate that because of the environment, the weather, and the way it exists in the community, we shouldn't be a part of that high fire severity rating. And so therefore we weren't designated as such. To the point of funding, there's just no free money out there, and we're not excluded from it. We apply every year for any kinds of dollars that may be out there. Our best bet is going through FEMA and using our local representatives to the Congress and talking to them about getting earmarks for this community, which this community has done very well in a lot of projects. And we continue to look for the funds that are out there to help us in terms of trying to mitigate vegetation here. But we are not a very high fire severity rating jurisdiction. We don't want to be one, and everything that we're doing is going to keep us from having that happen.
I just want to remind everybody, since we're getting close to 4th of July and fireworks go off, we need more patrols, especially when the sun goes down, to catch those. I'm on Humboldt 833, and I hear them from my place every year popping off all through the night, so I'm up all night trying to know what's going on. And I call the police, and it still continues to go on. It's usually around Sierra Point, somewhere below. But I think we have to really pay attention to that and get people to stop entirely.
I see the police chief nodding his head in agreement with you, so
well,
I'm sure we're taking
thank you.
On the subject of assembly points and shelters, what thought has been taken in advance about pets, dogs, and cats? The first thing I did was load up my car with crates. I have 3 dogs and 3 crates. But if I can't drive, and the dog
what are you going to do?
I show up at assembly point, they won't have.
That's another one of the interesting challenges that we deal with. Certainly it's understood. Certainly the county has some available assistance for that. They do have an animal control division. They do bring shelters. As we look at, if we had a big fire in town, the primary residential assembly point is here to get folks away from it. When we had a smaller, more contained incident like we did, it was at Mission Blue, and the plan that I have in my mind as the director of the EOC and of your emergency services is to use the Mission Blue tennis courts for dogs and to use shelters for cats. To use there. We only have a couple of horses in town. They're down at the end of industrial, right? So yeah, it's certainly a challenge, and you're absolutely right. And for those of you that have pets, as we start thinking about emergency preparedness, one of those items you have to have, right? A lot of us have pets that take medication now. A lot of them are on special food or special unique needs for them. And certainly having a shelter for them. It's interesting if you look at a lot of the evacuations going on now in the very rural areas where there are folks that have more horses and they can transport themselves, so they have neighbors coming in and assisting them. But thank you for bringing it up. Pets are a big concern, 1 and 2. Go ahead.
Yeah, that brings up a a subject that happened that night where a woman threw her cat into the car, not in a carrier, and she almost had an accident. The cat was so out of it. The cat jumped down on by the gas pedal and lodged itself between the gas pedal and the brake, and she almost had a serious accident. Yeah. So if you're going to evacuate your animals, have something to put, especially cats.
Yeah,
Throw them into a box, you know, put a noose around their neck or something. Yeah.
Good point on Ken. Yeah.
I would like to see, I'm at the cul-de-sac, I'd like to see that red painted because people actually use that as a parking lot and keep their vehicles there for a while and we're going.
Is that the end of Trinity?
Yeah.
And again, note for the record that I did not know this lady. I did not pay her any money before this meeting.
I live there and I see it. I mean, I've called them before to move that vehicle because it's a strange vehicle.
It's the incredible challenge. If you've heard me talk in my day job as a city engineer, you've heard me talk a lot of times about the real challenges we have with a burgeoning town as it's grown over the last couple of decades and as we've had more infill and as home prices continue to go up, we have more and more people living at home longer and everybody's working, right? And we're this fossil fuel driven sort of industry and everybody's got a car and we're trying to get back and forth. And I still tell people, although I won't tell them in the street anymore, I've been here almost 8 years as a city engineer, and I can go to a residence where there is a non-moving vehicle parked in front of the garage. And so I know that they don't have any cars parked in that garage, and I know that all their drivers are parked out on the street. And the good news is that the Traffic Advisory Committee has taken this on. It's one of the items that they are working on. They're in the process right now of developing a survey that's going to go out through the community that talks about a residential parking permit program. A lot of you may not be aware that that's actually something that is within municipal code right now. If you had a majority of residents in a neighborhood, in a block, you could petition the city to do that, to set up this parking permit program. And what I think the town has done is they've come up with a very thoughtful way of trying to gather the community's thoughts on this, recognizing that there are a bunch of different issues. How do you develop that? There are some homes, I don't see anybody here that comes to my mind, but there are some homes that do not have vehicle access to their property. I would submit that those folks probably ought to have a place on the street where they can park.
Right.
There are some homes that have two-car garages and driveways in front of them where they can park two vehicles, yet they never park there because they're using the garages to store their personal treasures, right? And because their driveway is other things. So how do you deal with that? You know, we put different burdens on different people, and it's going to be a real challenge. We're going to wrestle with it. I think we're going to have to wrestle with it, right?
Well, this is the entry to the fire road.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
so.
I hear you. I hear you, but you know fully well that there will be people who will come up and say exactly the opposite. It was a very contentious issue the last time we dealt with it.